Good evening, everybody. I'm very, very pleased to be here today, and it is with much joy that we are able to be back after a rather turbulent time, here live in the Depot Deli, next to the Vitra Schau Depot in Weil am Rhein, and it just feels great. My name is Susanne Graner. I'm the head of collection and archive at the Vitra Design Museum and also part of the curatorial team of our current exhibitions. Here we are, Women in Design in the Vitra Design Museum, and Spot On, women designers from our collection in the Schau Depot. The exhibition, Here We Are, in the museum, traces the works and tells stories of the working condition of women designers in design over the last 120 years. And this ranges from some of the most iconic objects created by Eileen Gray to little-known new discoveries, contemporary activist networks, or feminist design research. Meanwhile, the Vitra Schau Depot explores the role of women in furniture design in our collection practice. We have put the spotlight on new acquisitions, archival treasures, and other exciting findings from our collection, which relate to women in design, of course. In doing so, both exhibitions express a clear stance on a social key issue and present modern design in a new light. It is with utmost pleasure that, as part of our series of events, in the context of our core topic on women designers, I'm here tonight with Sabine Marcelis and Lisa Ertel, whose works are also featured in our exhibition in the Schau Depot. Great to have you here, and please give a warm welcome to both Lisa and Sabine. Before giving the word to you, I would like to say a few brief sentences about the course of tonight's event. To begin with, both Lisa and Sabine will take the stage to introduce themselves and their work, and this will be followed by a conversation with the two of them, and I would be very happy if you, dear visitors, also take the chance at the end of this talk to ask questions. And the third part will be a visit to the Schau Depot, where both designers will say a few words about their work or their objects on display, and this will also give you the opportunity to talk to both of them. Now I would like to hand over to Lisa and Sabine and wish you all a pleasant and inspiring evening.
Hi, I'm really glad to be here today in person, despite the pandemic and the storm. And I'm happy to show you or give you a little insight into my practice, how I work, with whom I work, and where I find my inspiration. So maybe I thought it's interesting to show you in which constellations I'm working at the moment. So there are duos like the Studio Ö. I run together with Anne-Sophie Overkrumme, who's also here today. Together we work on commissions in the product design field, but also interior and art direction. But there are also larger groups like the Fan Collective. There are also two members here today. And the Multilog Working Group, which is a group out of 10 women designers. Yeah. And when it comes to my process, I really like to be guided by observations or associations I have within my rural or urban surroundings. They often manifest in everyday objects or in architecture. But I'm singularly fascinated by the skills of nature, and especially this scenes where those both words, like the culture and the nature, meets, or where this friction or the seemingly friction of both seemingly dualistic words clash or meet are super interesting for me. So here on the right side, you see a Belgian technique of optimizing fruit trees to make them more efficient. And this leads me to the first project I would like to show you. It's called support bowls, and they are 3D printed bowls which are based on an association I had when I looked into the 3D printing process. So here you see two examples where a generative software optimized the form to make it more lightweight and to save material. And what is super fascinating to see is that the results don't look super mechanical or slick, but they look organic and remind us of forms of bones or trees. And on the left side, you have a construction part, and on the right side, you see support structures, which are structures that support overhangs during the printing process. And I used, and after the process of printing, they get thrown away. And I used this technique to let such support structures grow around 3D printed fruits. And after that, I deleted the fruits and just printed the support structure. And, so at the end, you have an object that is both in a way. It's grown and built at the same time. And the support structures become the main protagonist. Last year, I spent in Maastricht, in the Netherlands, together with my partner Jan Ertel. I spent there 1 year for residency at the Jan van Eyck Academy. And when we arrived, the city was in a lockdown, so to explore our surrounding, we took a lot of walks through the empty streets of the city and to enclosed parks or nearby nature. And with a kind of childlike curiosity, we started to follow traces and collect biofacts and artifacts and bring them into our studio space. And the space then slowly mutated in a kind of Wunderkammer, cabinet of curiosity, that told stories of the mysteries of the place, of the history, and also the resources from this region. And then a dialogue between the outside and the inside, the domestic space, began, where the souvenirs we brought from outside started to adapt to their new surrounding, becoming tame by getting a function, for example, while the everyday objects and the tools we used started to get rebellious. So here's some examples. And there's a ladder out of Christmas trees, or a defensive shelf, or a thorn trestle, or a flintstone vase. These are some examples of the things that happened. And I come already to the last project I would like to show you. It is called Pina. It's a project I realized together with Anne-Sophie. And this time it's based on a history of a city. On the right side you see Agrippina. She is the founder of Cologne. And she was often immortalized in stone, sitting on a throne, like here, on a Klismos chair. And due to the fact that she interfered too much into politics for women, her son Nero demanded that most of her statues were destroyed, and also let the historians write badly about her and denounce her as a bloodthirsty ruler. And this is still the story we read today. Yeah, and this research kind of evolved into this throne we dedicated to Agrippina. And we are also playing here with altered realities by using two different materials, a natural stone and corian, which is a mineral composite. Yeah, and also in a way asking these questions, who is responsible for transferring knowledge and history, and through which eyes are we looking at them? Yeah, so that's my little introduction.
Hello. I'm also very excited to be here. Thank you very much for inviting us to be here. I'm Sabine Marcelis, and I'm a designer, and I have a studio in Rotterdam, the Netherlands. The studio has my name, but I don't design alone. I have a fantastic team of designers. Johanna Sepp is one of them. And also, we collaborate a lot with production specialists, material specialists. So it's my name, but it's definitely not just me. This is the view of our studio, from our studio looking outside, sorry. And yeah, we work on quite a vast variety of projects, ranging in scale, but also clients, markets, but there's always this red thread of that. The point is that we're just curious and in search of magical moments within materiality and manufacturing processes to create these unexpected experiences. And yeah, this image, I always feel it sort of explains a lot about how we work, because this, to me, is something it's super beautiful, like these moments in nature where light and clouds and different matter come together to create this riot of colors. So this is nature, and especially light-activated nature is a huge inspiration for me. And it keeps returning in my work. So for when did I start the studio? I graduated about 10 years ago, and then, yeah, just started working. And it's always, like, from the beginning, I've always worked a lot with resin and glass, because those are the two materials that can mimic these effects in nature the best. So it's really a reoccurring theme of trying to capture these moments and in a permanent way, in static objects, but you don't experience them in a static way. When you move around them, they have a different reflection, or just simply the way the light hits it gives a different color effect. So I'm always like in search of capturing something immaterial within materials. And so I think the thing that makes our studio quite unique as well is that we have a design studio, but it's directly linked to a production workshop. And in that sense, it's kind of also the only way that I know how to design. It's directly with the materials and testing things and really being very tactile and just seeing what you can achieve, and only then the form comes after. It's not a process of sketching and then figuring out how to produce it. So this image is of the workshop downstairs from our studio. So that's really our playground to get more ideas from directly within the production process. And this is one of the first projects I did with resin. It's the Candy Cube, which recently was acquired by the Vitra Chao Depot collection. And this is, I mean, it's a very anonymous object in a way. It's a simple cube. It's not, it's not a form I invented in any way at all. And I love that it has that anonymity to it. But through the material alone, it has something magical, like something that makes you want to touch it. And that's really purely through the material use and the way that it's produced. And that's also why I think it's nice that it's sort of taken on a life of its own. It started as a display object for a fashion brand, but now it's found a home in the most random places, like houses that are extremely minimal to more sort of castle settings. There was even a pop star that used it on stage in one of her concerts. So I think it's really nice that there is this anonymity that allows other people to take their own take on the object. I'm not suggesting a specific use for it. And then on a more sort of larger scale, because we've been working with this material for so many years now, the whole point of it is to keep pushing it further. I really hate to sort of repeat myself and get stuck in a certain thing. It's always the aim to, with every project, go a little bit bigger or be a bit more bold, just so that there's always a challenge. That's really the thing that keeps me going. So here's a little bit of a behind the scenes of that bathroom, where, yeah, this is why I became a designer, just figuring out how this whole process works. You know, there's so many people involved in it. It's really fun to try and make something happen that maybe seems a bit impossible to begin with. This is a project we did for a fashion brand, Fendi. And this again was really, I pitched an idea that actually I had no idea how to realize it, but then it was confirmed, so that it's like, okay, now we have to make it a reality. And that's, again, the funnest part, just having a wild idea and then together with a bunch of people figuring out how to make that happen. So we did 10 fountains, and that was really an exploration of, again, finding moments in nature where water is doing something interesting and capturing that in sculptural elements. So first they were quite small fountains, and then as a follow-up we did this really massive one, which was quite a challenge for the workshop and everything around it, actually. And yeah, it's not just the resin. This is another example of another production partner that we have with glass. I was invited to do a show in the Mies van der Rohe Barcelona pavilion, and I really wanted to extrude the materiality of the pavilion, and not just the marble and the travertine, but also the water, and really try to lift that off the ground and shape it in a new way. And this was also really trying to push the limitations of existing production processes. So this is the biggest sheet of glass possible to curve, and in the biggest, just kind of the biggest everything that was possible. Oh, and there's a slide missing. But anyway, that then became a fountain in the Mies van der Rohe pavilion. But it's not in here, so I can't show you. But it does exist. So yeah, that's me in my studio in a nutshell.
Thank you. Thank you both for your very interesting and inspiring introduction. I think it's now easy to understand why we as a museum are also fascinated by your work. And in this regard, I would like to take the chance to talk about something very similar, which impresses me very much, and it's about the way of working with perfection. I would call it perfection, and the combination of minimal forms and fine craftsmanship that creates new forms of objects. And Lisa, you are working, if it comes to furniture, you are working mostly with metal and wood, so as far as I know. And Sabine, you with glass and resin. And again, I'm really interested, where does the inspiration really comes from, and what is the significance with the material? And I make quote you to yourself, Sabine, that glass is your weak spot. I've read. So what is this about it?
Well, yeah, as I said, I completely design from a curiosity point of view. And glass is one material that can be shaped in so many different ways. Like if you layer it, you can curve it. It can be sandblasted. It can be mirrored. And there's just so many ways that this material can have interactions with the outside world, with light. So it's really just, for me, a material that has endless possibilities to create interesting effects with. And it's very unforgiving as well, for talking about perfection. And yeah, I mean, I mainly design with very minimal shapes, which then any imperfection is also very obvious. So perfection is a big part of the work, and also a big frustration, absolutely.
And from your point of view, what is harder to work with, glass or resin? What is the more challenging material?
In different ways, they have their own thing going on. I think glass is probably more difficult because if there's something wrong, it's very hard to fix it. Yeah, it's much more starting all over again from scratch with glass than with resin. You can still recast it or shape it or sand it. None of that's possible with glass.
Thank you. And Lisa, some words about the material?
Yeah, as I mentioned, I draw a lot of inspiration from both worlds, the more rural and the urban. So I also like to play with this seemingly opposites of both worlds, like the industrial and the craft, the warm and the cold, the grown material and the built material, the anthropogenic material. And yeah, I think wood and stainless steel, for example, are quite good representatives of those both worlds. So I guess that's the reason why they're often the adequate choice. But yeah. Yeah.
What I found also interesting is, Lisa, you are a partner in various collectives or initiatives like the Biodesign Lab or the Fan Collective, while you, Sabine, you have founded your own studio and you collaborate, of course, with a lot of people and with big brands, but your most famous objects are produced under your name. So what were the reasons that lead you to work that particular way?
Yeah, I think, first of all, it's a lot of fun to work with people that have to share the same interests. But yeah, I think it's often helpful to have access to more than one perspective when you work on a topic. And of course, you can share everything. You can share skills and tools, and but also doubts and expenses and moments of success. So that is really beautiful to work that way. And yeah, I think, but what is also important to say is, if you work or if you join forces and you share expenses, and especially if you work in an interdisciplinary team, you don't necessarily need an institution or a company in your back to realize exhibitions, for example, and show your work. So I think this is also an important point why we see so many collectives, for example, popping up at the moment. Yeah.
I think for me, it was just how it sort of happened. I haven't really planned how my career should have gone, but I am quite stubborn in my views, or like I very specific ideas about things. So for me, it was just always a no-brainer that I wanted to work for myself and I didn't want a boss. But then I don't I mean, I collaborate with a lot of people because it's not fun to work alone. And I have a whole team. And also, when you work with more people, then the fun parts are more fun and the bad parts are less bad. But I think at the end of the day, it's just always been quite important for me that I can have my own way in the end. So I think that's why it's I've kept it as my own studio. But yeah, I think it's also the fact that I've always thought that if you work with someone else as a duo, because it's true that this new way of working in many different collectives, it wasn't really happening when I started designing in any case. But I didn't want to be stuck in one specific way of working. So I am still able to do architectural projects or very small design object projects. It's just getting like other people on board that have the expertise, so that in that way I can sort of butterfly around those fields.
And speaking about your career, were there any moments of doubt, or were there moments where you would even think about leaving this path? So just kind of...
Well, I think in the first few years I was like babysitting, doing all sorts of random jobs to have an income. And then just, trying to make it all work design-wise. And it was a lot of hard work and, with no payoff. So I think, especially in the first few years, I had a lot of times just the thought of like, it'd be way easier to just get a job somewhere. But no, I'm happy I stuck it out, and yeah. But of course, I don't have any doubts now. I think I'm very happy with how things are going. And I wouldn't want to stop having my studio, but in the beginning, for sure, yeah.
Lisa, how do you feel about it?
I feel the same way. But maybe also to answer this question in the context of this exhibition here. So there are often like situations in your daily practice, or in my daily practice, that I have to face that show me that reveal that it's still not normal that women do this job. And so that can be small situations like going to a manufacturer and getting addressed with, "Hey, young lady, what can I do for you?" Or recently I got complimented in a hardware store for weighting the screws correctly without the help of a man. So, I mean, there are weeks when I'm more often in a hardware store than a supermarket. But those situations seem small, but they add up and have definitely an influence on your self-confidence. So,
Yeah. I mean, speaking really in the context of this exhibition, as you have mentioned it, and speaking about these obstacles and challenges, were there any women or designers in general in your professional career who were role models or supported you or influenced you in a specific way?
Yeah, for sure. For example, to name two professors of me, Desiree Heiss and Ines Krag from PLES, who are also here in the exhibition. I'm super impressed how they run their business and how confident they are in what they want and what they need, and they don't adapt to any expectations from the design scene or the fashion scene. So it's not really possible to pigeonhole them in a way. So yeah, I think they were role models in a way, and I think it also needs more female professors like them. But I think it's also important to look to the women that are our age, or that, for example, all the fantastic designers I work with in the Multilog group, they're all super skilled, and it's super inspiring to work with them or next to them. Yeah.
Well, when I was still studying, I did an internship in Sweden at Front Design. And the reason that I wanted to go to them was also because it was all female, and I was like curious how that works. But before I went there, I definitely had this idea, or like put them on this pedestal of like, if you can be successful, then you need to have this massive studio. And this is in the time when they had just released the 3D printed chair. So I was like, wow, they must have loads of 3D printers in the studio. Like, you know, you put them on this like level way beyond reach from your own level at that point. But then when I arrived and I saw that their studio wasn't how I imagined it, but they were, you know, very successful, and it made it much more reachable and much more realistic. So that was, I think that was really a game changer for me. That was like, I think I could possibly do that as well. And when I left, Sophia told me, like, don't get a job, because if you get a job, it's really difficult to leave again that security. So then in these moments in the first few years when I was a lot of times like, oh, I should just get a job. And then I always had that in the back of my head, like, no, I shouldn't get a job, no. So I think that's also, like, credit her to that.
Wow, thank you very much for that insight. What we as a curatorial team kind of learned while researching for that exhibition was that, we took a closer look at the concept of design, as we have learned it over decades. So it's very much oriented by the history of industrially manufactured products, and it is discussed in a very Eurocentric way. So, and it's quite a very narrow story, and this concept is in a lot of areas of design, and especially areas where a lot of female designers have cultivated and built up like a century-old tradition, like textile or ceramics, are excluded. So there's this discussion, it's probably also in academic discussions, but does this discussions in a way influence your work? It's kind of, I'm just interested, because that is something we've, as curators, have dealt with or found out, and that was also the reason why we really kind of traced a lot of designers which biography is kind of unknown, or, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we are all three also white Europeans. Yeah, and I think, or I'm aware of my privileged position in that. And yeah, I hope that, or I also have the feeling that that the awareness grows in general in the design scene, but probably to make really a change, we have to rethink what is good design or what is universal design. Yeah, I think there's still a long way to go.
I think it's difficult because design is such a broad field. Like, you know, you can have design where someone is optimizing heart surgery equipment, or like that has nothing to do with how I design. So I think it's difficult because it means like now there's so much more information out there, so people can find each other easily, which is great because it makes the field even wider in that sense. But if it's influenced my work, I think I kind of never really had the ambition to be a specific type of designer, and I think during my studies it was also very much like I didn't really want to design the bread maker or the machinery industrial design thing. It was more like whoa, the bread rises, that's a really interesting effect, I want to do something with that. So I think I've just kind of just followed my own fascinations and rolled with that. Okay.
I think many thanks for this personal, very in-depth insight into your work and life. And before I invite the audience to ask their question, could you give us a glimpse of your upcoming project?
Yeah, there are a lot of exciting projects in the pipeline with all the different within all the different working constellations. With Lisa Ertel, for example, I'm just preparing an exhibition for Milan. Really looking forward to that. And there's a fan project which we will realize in Ghent at the end of the year. So yeah, and yeah, I will keep you updated.
Thanks for that. And Sabine?
Yeah, we have a bunch of very varied projects in the works as well, but a really exciting one, which is also why we're here. And today is in the Schau Depot to reimagine how you can present the collection instead of chronologically in a different way. So yeah, I'm very excited about that.
Yeah. And yes, I mean, the opening will be on the 13th of May. So you're all invited to come and have a look what's going on in the Schau Depot. Yeah. So thank you very much, both of you. And now I will hand over to you, dear audience. Are there any questions?
Maybe in the Schau Depot then.
Maybe in the Schau Depot. We will have a chance for another round of questions in the Schau Depot.
Hello, thank you for the presentation and the talk. I was wondering whether there's maybe something we can change, either if it's in the universities or how we teach design, to maybe give women in design a more, like, how should I say it, to maybe equal the playing field more. It was maybe also more a question that I just asked myself. Is there maybe something we need to change in how we teach design, or how we work with designers, how we present designers? I think this is a great exhibition here. It's definitely in the right direction, but maybe there could be something else we could do. I don't have the answer, but maybe, this is more of a question.
Yeah, I think the goal is not to make it special or to create a handful of role models or female design heroes who can look at, but to, in the long run, to make it normal that women do this job. So for that, of course, it's super important to show their work and to write about them, but also to work with them and to buy their work and to collaborate and with a bright diversity of perspectives. And also of course in the education to have female professors more equally.
Yeah, I don't know if it's an education thing, because actually in my class there were more female than male students. I think it happens after. It's like lifestyle things, and that there's a bigger barrier to setting up a studio and maintaining it when like family comes into play, things like that. So maybe it's more the support system afterwards that would play a bigger role. Yeah.
Okay, if there are any other questions, or should we just go all together to the Schau Depot and take a closer look at the objects on display and take the chance to listen to some of your ideas or some stories about the objects, and then have also again the chance to ask some questions. Okay, thank you very much.